I'm clicking on it. Should be going live. It's a little like the little bar on my screen is just like slow to go live. But we should be live now. And hi guys, how you doing? Good afternoon. It's Kevin here with Ryan again. We'll do some training on Active Directory, and I'll leave the floor to Ryan. Ryan could go ahead and talk.
Hi guys, thanks again for taking the time to view this session. In this lab, we're going to do some really basic stuff to get you familiar with Azure Active Directory. We're going to create some users using the portal, but also using Bash and PowerShell. We're then going to also try to create a user, a B2B user, so that we can see how that works. And then we'll talk about creating bulk users, where we would go in and import bulk users using a CSV file. And of course, we'll create users and we'll delete those users, and then we'll try to recover those user accounts in Active Directory. So it's more about just getting familiar with the Azure Active Directory. I mean, there's a lot that we can cover and there's a lot involved in it, but like everything else, starting off with the basics will get us up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get going, and I can kind of show you what's happening. You should see my screen now. As you can see, I've logged into the Azure portal, and you can always navigate to Azure Active Directory by clicking Azure Active Directory there, or at the top, of course, you can just type in Azure Active Directory and find it from here. So it's up to you at the end of the day. Again, playing in the portal is really important, and getting your hands-on is important. So again, very simple. If you wanted to create a user, we would go in here and would create a new user. A lot of you, like I say, know how to do this already. Now, before we create a new user, we've got this other tab here called Invite User. And this is what we call a B2B user, where you can invite someone from outside of your organization to join your Active Directory infrastructure and have access to certain resources, especially if you're collaborating on projects or you're working with various people in the organization. By default, we can create our own user. As you can see here, we've got Alice at Rocket Labs, and that's picking up my domain name. Again, that's domain name gets picked up from here, and you can have multiple domain names. And if you've worked with Active Directory on Server 2012, all the way up to Server 2019 or Exchange, you will know you can have multiple domains. A lot of companies won't just have, say, rocketlabs.com. They might have, say, rocketlabs.com, rocketlabs.au, rocketlabs.china, whatever. They'll have multiple domains for different reasons. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go and create a user. So let's call this user Beth. And of course, we've got to give the user a full name. So we'll just call her Beth Jane. Doesn't really matter what name you want to call her. Again, you can come down here and you can just type her name in, and we can type her last name in again. And scrolling down, we can actually say show password. And this will show the user's password. Obviously, you can copy that and email that to them. But again, we can just go ahead and create a password. So I'm just going to go and create a password quickly. And once I've entered the password, we could go ahead here and we could add a user to a group or add a user to a role. Now, we'll do this just now. I just wanted to show you where we're going to go to do this. And of course, you could go ahead and create the departments and whatever it is, and you just click create. And this will go ahead and create that user. And if you're used to working with Active Directory, this should be a walk in the park for you guys. And of course, when you're in Azure Active Directory as well, by going back into Azure Active Directory, again, creating a group is very similar. You can go ahead and create a new group. These are some other groups by default in Azure Active Directory. And as you can see, we've got these groups here, Windows AD Server, Windows AD Server. This is because I did a cloud sync with AD Connect. And this synced up those different groups. Now, let's say for argument's sake, I've taken my AD server out of operation. I don't need to sync up my users' passwords because I do not have an on-prem Active Directory syncing up using AD Connect. But when you set up AD Connect, you will get some groups that will populate over from your Active Directory. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those groups because I really don't need those groups. All I'm interested is in the cloud group. And obviously that's a group I've created. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create another group. And we could call this group, let's give it a name. I'll just call this one IT for IT support. And we can give it a name, IT support. And if you notice now, we've got security group, and I've also got an Office 365 group. Now, if I had Office 365, I could select that and I'd have Office 365 apps available to my users. But because I don't have Office 365 at the moment, I'm just going to select security group. Of course, we can select owners, who's going to be an owner of that group, and we can select members. And once we start doing that, adding members to our groups, we can say, right, Beth Jane is going to be part of IT support. And now you can see here one owner is added here. And of course, we can kind of go down through the members, and we could kind of choose from a wide range of groups that we can add, or members that we can add to. Again, we'll cover this a little bit later. So I'm just giving you some basics.
Ryan, someone before I interrupt you, sir. Someone I have a question asking, is it possible to do RDP or remote into someone's computer using a screen share on Azure directory or no? Like, is it possible to remote it? Like, you know how you use like TeamViewer or BumGuard? Can you do that on this direct? Can you do this in this portal? Can you remote into someone's PC, or you have to use a third party?
You'd have to use a third party tool if you're wanting to remote in. Like I say, normally with Azure Active Directory, if you want to work in Azure Active Directory, you need to first of all have an Azure Active Directory account. Then you can log in to Azure Active Directory. But if you want to access somebody else's PC and work on their PC, there's a few ways you can do that. If that PC is part of your domain infrastructure, you can then use an RDP session to get into it. If not, you could use something like TeamViewer to access that PC if that machine is outside of your infrastructure. If it's on the domain and it's outside your infrastructure, you can always get the user to connect via via VPN, sorry. Then you could connect using RDP. But Active Directory, in a sense, if you want to work and manage users in Active Directory, there are two ways to do this. One, if you've got Active Directory on a server running a Windows Server 2012 or 16, you actually need access to that server. Domain access or administrator access, so that you can create your user in Active Directory, and then you'll navigate to administration services on a Windows server, and you'll go and create your user or modify your user from there. On the portal, if you had rights, which we'll talk about now, you could actually log into the portal with your account, and you could then manage your users straight from the portal. If you had a hybrid environment and you had AD Connect on your domain controller, then you could actually log into the portal, and then whatever changes you make here can also flow down to your other Active Directory and vice versa. But there is no tool like RDPing into Active Directory itself. If you wanted to have the Active Directory tool on your machine without actually getting into Active Directory on a local PC, you would go to Programs and Features. You would say Add and Remove, and then you would install the Active Directory snap-in, or you may have to download the Active Directory snap-in. Once you've downloaded that Active Directory snap-in onto your desktop PC, you will see the Active Directory icon for your PC, which looks like a yellow phone book. And then obviously when you connect, it's going to prompt you straight away for your admin credentials. or credentials that allows you to log into your server, you would type that in, and then you would have access now only to Active Directory on from your desktop PC and nothing else. And sometimes that's a really good tool for the Helpdesk users, or for certain users that you don't want to give them access to the server because they don't need to get on the server, but they just need Active Directory. And then they can use that snap-in from their local PC and manage Active Directory. There's no such thing as a snap-in as far as I know with Azure. So Azure, you log into the portal, and of course, based on your permissions and roles, you will have access to certain things, or you won't have access to certain things. Hopefully that answers that question.
There we go. Thanks, Ryan.
Again, it's very easy for me to tell you that, but what I'll do in a lesson with Kevin is I'll show you how to do that live. And that's a really good question, because it really is important when it comes to the real world environment. So absolutely, I will cover that with Kevin. We'll try and do that in a video next week, where we can talk about these snap-ins and see how our Active Directory on-prem works with Active Directory in the cloud. And we'll do a quick AD Connect. I'll have all that set up, and then we can actually go through and see the physical differences between the two between Azure Active Directory and your normal Active Directory, because they are two different Active Directory tools, infrastructure. So if someone says to you, well, the AD on server is the same as AD in the cloud, no, it's not. Definitely not. Azure Active Directory, as I call it, ADD versus AD, is very different in a lot of ways. And I'll explain those to you probably next week as we move through getting our head around Active Directory. So moving on to the lab, as you can see, we've created groups. It's pretty easy. If I select that group, you can go ahead and it tells me the type of group it is. And it also tells me if I've got any owners in that group, or if I had any group memberships, I could click on that. And if I had any group members, I could go in there and add members to that groups. And I can go ahead and look at different properties as well related to IT. So again, it's just about getting our head familiar with stuff. Now, another thing I want to talk about while we're in Active Directory is we've got licenses. And let's just quickly scroll back to AD, and I'll come into licenses. Now, these are licenses. You would have heard the term P1, P2, P3, and the licenses can range from $9 a month per user to $20 a month per user, depending on what licensing you want to get. Because with Azure Active Directory, if you get a P2 license, you can then do self-password reset, but you've got to pay for that. It's a licensed feature. You can't just go ahead and do that because, because you don't have a license. So it's slightly different when it comes to working in AD, but I thought I should mention that so that you are familiar with it. If we click on licensed features, you can kind of see here where we now need to start adding licenses. For example, remember I was talking about a P2 license, you can see here. So by default, we get these free licenses all the way up to here, which is good to get you going. It's good to get you, good to give you an understanding of Active Directory. Just bear in mind, there is a limit of 500,000 objects on the free AD, and of course, support for 10 apps, that's it. And as you scroll down, this is where if you want to brand your organization and brand your logons with your company logo and brand your panels and stuff, you can get a P2 license. Multi-factor authentication, where it authenticates via the phone. You need to get a P2 license. Of course, different things with group management, password protection. A lot of things change as you start getting these licenses and start paying for these licenses. So these are something, this is something that you should just be aware of, because someone will say, well, I'm trying to do a password reset and I can't. So, well, you can't do a password reset because you need to go and get a P2 license. It won't allow you to do that. So again, moving back into Active Directory, if we come back into our users, we can see we've got our users here. If I select on Beth Jane again, and I go to Beth Jane, you can see I've got all the different permissions, different information about Beth Jane. If Beth Jane forgets her password, you can scroll up to the top here. You can say, I'm going to do a password reset. This little window will open up on the side when it decides to open up, and it's thinking about it. There we go. Then we say a password reset. Now, when we do a password reset here, do you notice it resets the password and you say, well, that's great. You can't type a custom password. So what you need to do is you need to copy that password and text it to Jane and say to Beth, sorry, text it to Beth. Hey, Beth, here's your password. When she types that password in, it's going to prompt her for a password change, and then she can change it to whatever password she feels like that she wants to use, as long as it meets those companies' requirements. So creating a user in Active Directory, as you can see, is very easy and very simple to do. Again, I'm going to go ahead and open up Bash now, or open up Cloud Shell. And in Cloud Shell, we can also create some users. We can also create groups. So I've got some commands already that I have set up. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paste this command in so that we can actually see it work. But another thing that you need to bear in mind is make sure you've got the right information before you paste it in. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'll drag this up and see if I can, on the settings, font size. Okay, it's the largest. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm just going to paste this command in. Now I'm going to read to you and explain to you what this command is. We use the AD user create. We need to give it a display name. So I'm going to call this user test3. We're going to give it a password. Obviously, you would type in a password. We're going to use a user principal name. I'm going to call it test3@rocketworks.com. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And if you notice, we have an error here. Now, I've done this on purpose as well, because when you start creating users within Active Directory, you need to go through and be able to understand what it is you're reading. What are those errors that I'm reading? So if you have a look here, you can see this is really great. It says try AZ user display name, and it says there test user. Now I'm waiting for you to tell me where my mistake is, if you can have a look at it. Of course, we've got our password, and you can see we've got our password. And then, of course, we've got our user principal name. So at the end of the day, we can, if we come back up into this command, I'm just going to use the up arrow key, and we're going to come back. Now, can anyone tell me why we would have quotations in our environment? Like I say, we've got their password, we've got a quotation. The reason we have quotations is because if we had a space in our environment, like we've got here, that should work. So if we come back and we'll move over and we'll press enter, and let's see if that's going to work, or that's still going to give us an error. So since you guys are we're doing this live, I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think we need to do in order to fix that? Do I need to take this out, or is there something wrong with my command? So I'll just ask you guys, if you guys are live, if you want to answer that question. Again, let's take this out and just see. And let's just call this test. We'll just get rid of this here. And obviously give that a space, and let's get rid of this bad boy. And let's just see if that's going to work. Again, spacing is quite important, because if you have too many spaces, or you don't have enough spaces, it can cause some drama. So that is something I want you guys to think about. I'll come back to you with the correct answer just now. I just want you guys to think about that one so that we can get your little brains ticking. Again, if I scroll over here and I move over into PowerShell, and we come down into PowerShell, when we want to create a user in PowerShell, we've got to use a twofold command. And that twofold command, one is for the password and one is for Azure Active Directory. So I've got a command, which I'm going to paste in here just to show you. And as you can see, I'm talking about setting up the secure password. Obviously, you could string this all out. So I'd go ahead and I would press enter. That would go ahead and accept that. Then I would just come along here and I would grab my other user that I've created in PowerShell on the other side. And of course, I would go ahead and hit his username. And if you notice here, it says here, missing argument parameter password. So if we come down and we have a look here, I've said AD pass equals password, but there is no password. So you've got to create a password. So again, that's something I'll let you think about, and we'll come back just now and we'll fix that up. So I'm just wanting to show you about creating different passwords. Again, while we're in PowerShell, let's go ahead quickly and create a new group. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to Bash, and then we'll come back into PowerShell. So I'm going to go into Bash. We're going to create a new user, and hopefully this command will work with no problem. We'll paste that user in and press enter. That will go away and create that user for us in Bash. Now we've got that that group name. So let's minimize this and go and see if there's a group called manager. So again, I'm just going to scroll back over to Active Directory. I'm going to go to groups, and there's my group managers. And it's been created. If I go in there, you can see I've got no user. We haven't assigned any users to that group, or owners, as they call it. You can see that down the bottom. Or, of course, you can see here direct members if you wanted to go and add a member to that group. Obviously, we're in the group members. I could scroll down. I could type in Beth, select Beth, select her. It would go ahead and add Beth. And if I went back into my groups and I went back into managers, and we kind of gave it a second, you kind of see that Beth would show up there shortly. Sometimes you just need to do a refresh and go in and out once or twice, or press F5, and you'd have your refresh with Active Directory. So once Beth is added, you'll see her showing up there. Sometimes just doing a refresh a couple of times, going back into the group and adding it. So as you can see, adding different users is pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to do. The thing that you need to bear, but what about if you got 20 people or 500 people? Are we going to create 500 people manually? We're going to be there the whole weekend. That's insane. Are you going to create 20 people? Well, that's also insane. Creating 20 people one at a time and then assigning them to the right groups, it's going to be a nightmare. So we can come up to this tab here called bulk operations. And we can then say, let's do a bulk create. Now, when you do a bulk create, we click download. And this is going to download a CSV template for us. I've got a template already populated, but I'm going to open this up so that you can see it. So I'll just drag it over because it's opened up on another screen. And as you can see, here's my CSV template. And we can go ahead and fill out all of these parameters. And once we filled out all these parameters, we can go ahead and save this template as a CSV template, and we can then import that. So I'm going to close this down. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to open up another CSV template that I have on my machine. Where did I save it? There we go. And as you can see, I've created this CSV template. I've gone ahead and put usernames in and some random passwords. And you can get an idea of where I would want to put them, which department. And you can go ahead and fill all this out. So, and of course, you can fill out which country they want to be in, and you can kind of move over and add in phone numbers and everything. Obviously, you would say, well, where do I get this info from? Well, you get this info from your HR department. Your HR department might say, hey, we've got all these users starting. If your HR department puts that into an Excel format for you, then that's great. But remember, with Active Directory, we have to save it as a CSV file, not an Excel file. So I'm going to go, as you can see, it's saved already as a CSV file. So it tells me there, yeah, do you want to save it as a CSV? I'm just going to click save. And of course, I'm going to just throw it back on my desktop. It's already there, and it's going to overwrite it. Now, we've gone ahead and we've created our CSV file. So again, we can say bulk operations. We can go ahead and, again, we don't want to say bulk create. We want to invite now. Bulk create is creating the users. We want to invite the users. So obviously, I could come down here and I could go and select my CSV file, which is on my messy desktop. So there it is, and I'll click open, and I would upload my CSV file. Now, if you notice, once I've uploaded my CSV file, you can see the initial password, profile, block sign-in. You can go ahead and see we've got some of these issues. So I'm not too sure why that's done that. So we'd have to have a look and see. So I'll just fire up my CSV file again quickly and just see what's going on, because as far as I know, that should all be correct. So I'd have to have a look at that and see why it's not doing that. Obviously, when we're working with labs, it's nice when live labs don't work. As you all know, things do go bump in the night. So everything we've done is correct unless the password complexity, but that should be fine. So again, let's come back into, I'll just say, save it as something else again. Let me just say, save as browse, and I'll just say, rock lab, and I'll just save it on the desktop and say yes, and save it again, and let's just try that import again and see if we're still going to get the same error. Again, let's go back into invite, because again, we're not creating a user. Oh, I can see where I've made the mistake. Can you guys see where I've made the mistake?
We can't see the Excel file.
No, can you see my Azure screen?
Yep.
Okay, right. I said bulk create, and I said bulk invite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a look here, to go back to bulk create, and of course, we've got bulk delete, but let's go back to bulk create, and we'll go and find my CSV file, which is there. I said open, and CSV is not uploaded because I didn't save it as a CSV file. So let's grab that one. That should work. Okay, I don't know why that's not working. I must have something wrong with my Excel, because it's it should be a valid CSV file in order to open that. And if I open up my Excel spreadsheet, because even if I said,
well, I think it's the name convention. Look, it's
yeah.
roc.cscv.scSV, the way the name of
could
it.
very well be it.
So the naming convention.
Yeah. So let's just do this live instead of messing around. We'll go back into our, let's download a file. Let's open this one up. And let's just drag this over, and then we'll kind of say file, and we'll say save, and we'll save that and close that down. And now let's try and upload it again. So we'll go back into our thing here, and if I go into my downloads at the top here, and there's my file. Let's do this. And it's, yeah, I need to have a look and just see. It could be that there are no rows selected. So I could have an issue with that CSV file. I'd have to have a work, because I tried that out and it was working. So I'm not too sure why it's not working on my Azure, because it's a really cool thing to learn. So let me just have a quick look. I know we're running short on time, because even if you save your CSV file, because this is correct, we've got our name, we've got our city. So I'd have to go through and have a look and see why it's not saving. But again, like I say, we would grab this and I'd say file. If I said save as, would browse, throw that onto my desktop. You see, we're saving it as a CSV file. So we're not saving it as DOS or Mac. You want to save it as a CSV file, and we click OK and say, yep, it's saved. So it shouldn't really matter what you call it.
And I think get out of the tab and then go back to the tab on the web browser. Like here, get out of this and come back to it. Just curious, just try that.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's just do a refresh.
And then try doing it again.
It might very well be that, sometimes Azure just
it's a dumb issue like that.
Sometimes it just does stuff. So we say create user. Let's go ahead, and you see it says here, we've got our CSV file. So I've come back into here. We'll go back to my desktop and we'll grab that thing. You can see here, it's a Microsoft CSV file already. We'll say open. And I would have to go through and see why it's not doing that, because that's a weird one. It's the first time I've seen that. Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and get rid of that version number. That might be causing
the version number, yeah.
Because I've seen that happen, and then I've seen it where it doesn't happen. So let me just open up that CSV file. We'll get rid of that version number. Let's just scroll up and make sure. So there's no version number there. So that's great. And that is the one we're using. So let's just close out of here and let's go into. Okay, so we do have to put a version number. Okay, so that's obviously changed, where before you didn't have to do this.
Yeah, they probably updated the website.
You could just go and grab a thing. So let me tell you where that version number is. If I go to my downloads, and I'll just drag it over so that you can see, what we can do is we can do a little MacGyver trick to get it working. So I'm just going to open up this template. And this is where the issue is, guys. Can
version
you see
number
this?
1.0, I see it, yep.
So that's what we probably need to do. And I think the reason probably why they've gone with version numbers is because we need to, when you're working with your users, maybe you want to have version 1 of 1, version 1.2, version 1.3, version 1.4, or whatever the case is. So that's where the issue is lying. So I'm just going to open up my one that I've created, and I'll go and add that.
And that version number 1.0, and then try to upload it again.
I'll go and add that version number in there. So we'll kind of see if that's going to work. And I'm just going to see it, because like I say, before when I've done it, I've never had to put a version number in. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that version number in there.
It's good though that we're doing it live, or the actual issue.
It live. So I'm going to say save, and I've saved it as a version number just so that you guys can see. I'll just drag it over. As you can see, I've gone ahead and I've thrown that version number 1.0 in there, and I've saved it. So let's go and pop that bad boy back up again. It was Rocket Lab. We say open. There we go.
There we go.
So that's something new that they've done, because I didn't have to do that before. Before I could just take that out and throw it in. So again, that'll take a bit of a while to upload those users. So that's something that we've all learned to put that version number in. And as you can see, it'll go ahead and have a look. And of course, we just, now we've got another little issue. Let's have a look and see. And it probably because it's the password. So again, let's just go back into Active Directory.
Doesn't like the password?
Probably doesn't like the passwords. Probably I need to put complicated passwords in there. But I mean, let me just open that file quickly and just add some complex stuff in there. So we kind of go through and see. Let's have a look, because all we're doing is we're not putting them in any groups. You can see I've got these passwords here. So maybe it needs to have some complex characters like, I don't know,
an @ sign and a bunch of numbers.
It's probably got to have something, a whole lot of complex characters. So let's just see this one. And let's try give me a second. Just do this live quickly. Just edit this, and I would get that out. And I'll just say ADF that could very well be what's causing all the
it's the password.
It could very well be the password, because like I say, I know where Microsoft are coming from. They're trying to make things very secure in terms of keeping your infrastructure safe. So let's just see. Let's say
probably doesn't like the password. So the password complexity is not complex enough.
Yes, so it's probably doing that. So I'm just changing a whole lot of stuff here as we speak. So because everybody uses the password thing. So I know where Microsoft are coming from, trying to lock everything down. And then of course, if I just went in there and said BZX12. And let's try. Let's try that. And let's try that. Okay, I'll just save that. And we'll try again. Okay. So I've just changed the password. So let's just see. Then we'll come back into, again, our bulk operations.
And I was going to say, Ryan, and that's a real thing in actual Java. Like sometimes you're trying to help a user change their password, right? And it's not complex enough.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
So it might not be complex enough. So I'll have to have a look and see. But again, like I say, as long as it's a CSV file, we've got a password in. And like I say, we haven't created any fancy groups or anything. We just want to import all of those users into Azure. So hopefully it will like that password. Otherwise, I'd have to investigate that more. No, it still doesn't like it. Again, let's have a look and see what the errors are.
Username and upload file is not valid.
Is not valid or uploaded. And I know that username is correct. So let's have a look. Let's edit. Oh, sorry, the wrong one. Let's open it up in Excel, because I know my usernames are correct. Because if we come into, okay, I know why my
email address
are invalid, because I'm using a wrong email address, because I've got multiple domains. Now let's come back into here. I'll show you where the issue is. If I come into Active Directory and we go to users, you can see here I've got my domain names. Can you see that? So again, if I had to select on Beth and I just go and grab that domain name, I would just hopefully just change that, because that would be your primary domain name. Then you would find everything would work. So I'm just, and then I'll drag this Excel spreadsheet over and I'll just kind of show you where it is. So there's a few things, like I said, that you've got to be aware of.
Yep.
Obviously, because I've got multiple domains, I play a lot on my system. That I have created this before. That's why I say I know it works. So it's probably because, like I say, my primary domain is the wrong domain. But
different domains.
Yeah, I've got multiple domains, and some domains are disconnected. Some domains are connected. It's all depends on what I'm doing at the time. But obviously, in your environment, again, I'll show you how to find out which is your primary domain, so that when you do this, you don't run into the same strife that I've just run into. So again, I'll come back into my Active Directory. We'll come into users. We'll go and do a bulk operation, create a bulk operation. We'll import that CSV file that I've just saved. We click OK, and let's have a look. Hopefully
that works.
That'll work. And I'll tell you why. If that works, then it's definitely the user's name. Otherwise, like I say, it's something I have to visit and have a look and see. But again, like I said, I try to do the labs live so that if there are issues, we can troubleshoot them together.
Here we go again.
I'd have to have a look and see, because I did
username again.
The usernames are correct. I know that, so we can kind of see. And I've got the right domain. So just make sure there's no space in there. That could be it, because there's a space in there. So again, I've got complex passwords. I know my users are all correct. Make sure I've got no space there, so that's fine. And do I have a space in there?
Yeah, you got spaces.
That could be causing all of my strife. I think that's what's causing all of my strife in the land when I created this Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, because it changes and highlights into a different color for email address.
Correct.
Oh.
So let's just do that. Because like I say, with anything in Active Directory, when you create your users and you've got a space in there. So let's just see, because it's screaming about that. First of all, we're screaming about this. Now it's screaming about that. So we'll close that down. We've saved that. We'll just save it again. And hopefully we should not have any dramas. So let's go back again. And we will go into our users. We'll do a bulk import. And let's go and grab that Rocket Lab file. Let's open up that bad boy and let's submit it. And hopefully that should pick it up and work with it. It should do, because there shouldn't be any errors. But otherwise, if there is, I'll investigate that and come back to you guys with an answer for that. But we've done everything correctly. Like I said, we've got the right password settings. We've got the username. We don't have any groups that we haven't assigned it to. So yeah, I need to have a look and see why it's not doing that, because I know it should.
Oh, wait, it's different.
And again, I've added the password complexity. So it could be just one user that it's failed. The rest has come through. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it could be that one user.
This is China, country China.
Correct. So now in a way, this is really good, so that you guys can come through. You can see, okay, which users were created. We know the one in China, obviously, because the password does not meet the requirements. And in a way, it's good that this lab is giving you these issues, because this is what you would face when you're working in the real world. So if we go into Active Directory, we go to users, voila, there's all of our users. So that's why I say I know the CSV file is working correct. And of course, we had that one user that didn't connect because the password didn't meet its requirements. And as you can see, there we go. It's created all of our users, and it's put them in the correct departments. If we go and have a look, say, at Chris Green, we can scroll down, we can see he's in the IT department. If we had company name, obviously I put his name there, New Zealand, country. You could have all this information populated for you by filling out that CSV. Now, again, in that CSV, we had an issue with China. So let's open up that CSV file and we can come through here and we can see our user, which obviously was in China. And we've got a password complexity requirement. So obviously it didn't like something here. And that's because we need to have some
letters.
Some letters. Like
if
I had to change this and call this, say, A, Q, V, F, it would work now because we've put that, because Microsoft require you to have a mix of characters, lowercase, uppercase letters and stuff. Now that would work because we've changed his user. So we could actually go in and see it working. So again, coming back into your Active Directory, coming back into your users, creating bulk users is pretty easy to do if you've got the right information. Again, as you noticed in our CSV file, we had a space. We can't have space. We had a password issue. So we've got to go and set up your password issues. And the reason this is probably a good lab is because your HR person is not going to type in a password. They'll flick it to IT. So you just need to know when you're creating bulk users that you need to put that password complexity in, and that you cannot have just the username and space. Because if you have a look at the template that we've downloaded and we move over, and as you can see, that's the template that we kind of followed. Obviously, you have to take out the example. You can't have that example in there. You've got to get rid of that. And there's a space here. So we've got to get rid of that space as well. And of course, the password, that's not going to work either because it's not going to meet the password complexity requirements. So you've got to go and modify that password. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to use that template and I'm going to just copy stuff from that. You're going to run into the same strife that we had. So make sure that if you're using that template, you know, we get everything out the way. We might call this guy, say, sorry, I can't spell today. My keyboard needs to get it changed. So we can call that, obviously we change his name here from Chris to Jack, and we'll say Jay. Mm-hmm. Now, if you try to upload this, you're going to run into strife. And the reason you're going to strife, because we need to put our domain name in here. Are you with me? We need to change that to your domain name. For example, ours was Rocketworks or whatever the case is, and we need to change the password policy. Once we've changed the password policy to meet requirements and we've saved it as a CSV file, we can then go ahead and upload that. And that won't work because it's using the default Contoso. The key, guys, is to make sure you have the right domain. And now you kind of said to me, well, where do I get the right domain from? Now, if we come back into Active Directory and we come down to custom domains, you can see here I've got a bunch of domains. And if I click on my domains, I can see this is my primary domain. Remember, I was trying to use the other domain lab, you know, like the My Azure Guru, and it wasn't working because it wasn't the primary one. You can't have 4 primaries. Are you with me? However, you can use this domain when we are just creating a random user in Active Directory. But because I'm logged in using the Rocketworks, and that's my primary domain, hence all of my users have got the Rocket Labs domain. And let's go along and want to delete some of these users. So we go and say, all right, we don't need those users. Hey guys, they left. You can delete those users. So we've gone ahead and we click OK. We've deleted the users. Then your manager phones you 2 weeks later. Oh, by the way, that user's decided to come back to work, or we now need to recover that user, or what do we do in order to go and find that user so that we can at least get information back. pretty easy. This is really cool. Deleted users. Before, like I said, this is in preview. Before this wasn't there, we'd have to run a whole lot of other stuff. And this is going to go and get all the deleted users that were deleted. For example, like this person had left the company way back, Sandy Lee, but we've got Billy Bob and Dick Clark. So obviously you can hold the shift key down and select those users. Then we could say, let's restore those users and click restore. Let's bounce back into Active Directory.
Oh,
Let's
that is so cool, man.
And
the restore.
There we go. There's my user, straight back. Simple as that. How cool is that? Where before, as you would know if you're working on a Windows Server 2016, 2012, 2008, when someone deleted a user from Active Directory and it was gone, the only way you could get that was by doing from a backup and a restore. But it's a big job because everything's integrated into the Active Directory schema. Now we can go back and say, well, there's Dick Clark. He's back up and running. You know, he can do his thing. You've recovered that account. So it really is awesome. And like I say, this is so good with Microsoft doing this. When in Azure, if you see something that says it's in preview, it means it's something new that's changing in Microsoft Azure. Again, if we go to all users, you can see we're all in the all users. Again, your boss may say to you, we need to download, I need to know all the users in my company. So again, of course, you could come down here and you could say on the bulk operations, you could say, let's say download users, and we could say, let's export all those users, and I'd start that. Then that would download all of my users in my Azure Active Directory. And then I can, it'll be in a nice little Excel spreadsheet with all the groups and memberships and everything. And then I can go ahead and send that downloaded CSV file to my manager. So I'll just go over to my downloads folder and just see where that downloads has gone to. And of course, I could go ahead and click my status here. You can say click down here, and I could open that file. And and there's my users. So as you can see, it's downloaded all of my users for me, and I can go ahead and I could now send this to my manager as a CSV file, and it'll have all my users for the whole company. And that way, if somebody asks you to get a list of users, you can go ahead and get that list and push it out and send it to them, and it tells you everything about those users. Obviously, it won't give you passwords because of security reasons, but you can scroll through and get a whole lot of information, including dates when those users were created, so that your company can go through and filter and say, okay, well, that user doesn't belong here, we can get rid of them. Or you as an IT manager can start filtering and getting rid of stuff that shouldn't be there. And that's one of the keys as well in IT. Guys tend to just leave stuff lying around and they don't clean up. So downloading these users is really a great tool to have. And also if you're managing it and managing people. Again, this is a bit misleading because it says bulk operations. And you'd have to select on that to download users. You can also do a bulk delete. So if you had to delete hundreds of users, you're not going to go one at a time deleting. You could do a bulk delete and download a CSV file or upload a CSV file of those users you wanted to delete. And you could say, right, delete those users, and it would delete those particular users. So if you've got 80 users, you can go through your CSV file, select your 80 users and say, those are the ones I want to do. You would then go to bulk operations. You would select, obviously, bulk delete, and that would go ahead and delete a whole lot of users instantly for you. You don't have to go click, click, click. Let's manually delete those users that way. And let's delete. You could go ahead and delete them all one hit. Again, while we're still on
I
users,
was gonna say someone just commented and said this is similar to the G Suite operation.
yes, yes, absolutely. He's right. It's exactly the same. In a sense, if you've worked with, like you say, Google Docs, Google Cloud, you've worked with Active Directory, you've worked with on-prem stuff, you'll start finding a lot of stuff can be cross-referenced and used. And so, well, it's not that hard to use. Again, if we're going into Active Directory and we decided new users and say, hey, we want to create a new user, but this time we want to invite a user. So I would go ahead and I would obviously invite a user. And as you can see, I've got my Gmail here, where I've got an account that I've created. So as you can see, there's my Gmail person there. So obviously I'd have to go into the Gmail. I've got quite a few accounts there, click copy. And then I would come down here. I would type in his address and I'll just type in Ryan, or in fact, let's type in say, hey,
I'm gonna start Ryan, I'm gonna start a GoFundMe to get you a new keyboard.
I've got a new keyboard. I'm just too lazy. But my old keyboard's really old. So I've been meaning to change it out because sometimes I type and it doesn't work. Sometimes I push something else, it doesn't work. Half the keys are missing. So yeah, I've got a new keyboard. It's just been too lazy to put it in. So we'll go ahead and we'll type in Kevin's name. So I'll just say I'll just call it we'll just call it Kevin James, and I'll just type in James, and I can say hi, and say hi Kev, help me man. Hi Kev, if I can spell today, please sign in with our AD. And of course, I could go ahead and I could do a whole lot of information. I can go ahead and select invite. Now, this is going to send an email to that Gmail address. So I'm going to bounce back over to my Gmail, and we are just going to wait a little bit and do a refresh. And I should get an invite shortly popping up in my box. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that. And there we go. There's my Microsoft invitation.
There we go.
Now, if I click on that, it says here, Rocket Labs has invited you to access applications within your organization. And I can go down, I can see, okay, that's the organization, Rocket Labs. And then I can say, let's click on this. Hi, Kev, please sign in with our AD. You could type a whole message there if you wanted to. And of course, you can accept this invitation. You can click on here, or you can say, I'm going to accept the invitation. And this is going to go away, and it's going to prompt us now to connect to our thing. So as you can see, it's giving us some stuff here. Obviously, we're going to create a password. So I'll just create a password here. And I will go, okay. It's asking us to enter a code that we would have got via our email for security reasons. So I'm going to, just bounce back into my, you'd have to bounce back into your Gmail again to go back into your inbox. And if you just give it a sec, you'll kind of see we'll get a verification, and there's our code. So it's, as you can see, we just copy this because I'm lazy, and of course we bounce back into here, we paste that bad boy in there, and we turn that off and we say okay. And now it's allowing us to connect to our Active Directory. So obviously this is telling us we need to rotate. And of course we click cool. and we give it a sec. It's now creating that account for us. And now it's logging us in. And obviously we're getting all these things saying, are you sure, you're going to Rocket Lab's Azure site? We're saying, yeah, that's fine. It says us that it's going to track our email address and it's going to read your name. And we say, that's fine. And as you can see now, it says RocketWorks logging in. So now we're logging in to our Active Directory. And this is where, if I had Office 365, you would see a bunch of applications here. If I had access to Word or Excel, I could go ahead and access those applications. Obviously, I don't have any of those applications. You can see there's my credentials. And of course, if you had shared those apps, I could go ahead and create apps or share apps or add an application or whatever the case would that I want to work with. So if I'm working with Kevin, or if and say, hey, Kevin, I'm going to give you Excel, here's Excel, and he can go through and log off and log in and use that. Now, if I move over, you can see in my Azure, it says here, Kevin James, and you notice he's got a Gmail account. Can you see that?
Yep.
So there is Kevin, and Kevin is a guest. Can you see there? It says he's a guest user. He's logged in with his Gmail account, and it was by invitation. You can see here at the bottom, invitation accepted. So if Kevin had access to certain things or certain applications, he could go through and you could collaborate with them on stuff if you wanted to. If you didn't want to collaborate with them, you could go ahead and say, look, I'm not going to collaborate with you. Thank you very much. And you can close that account. Again, you could go ahead and assign roles. You could revoke that session. You could edit stuff. So you still have full control over Kevin. All you've given Kevin access to is your Azure Active Directory, so it can help work with you guys. Some project managers may need that. Some contractors may work that way. It all depends on you at the end of the day. So how you can tell very easily, is when they've got this extension here with the Gmail address com/extension cloud, they've been given an invite, and it'll tell you they're a guest user. They're not a member. They're a guest user of your organization. And the same thing, talking about permissions and stuff, we could come into our Billy Bob here. We could go ahead and assign him a role by clicking assignments. And of course, we can say, right, we're going to make you directory readers, writers, or hey, we trust you. We're going to make you an Office 365 Dynamics administrator or a group administrator. So he can be part of multiple groups, or you might say, look, we're going to make you our help desk. And we would click add, and that would go and assign those memberships to him. And of course, we could go ahead again with groups. We can say, right, he's going to be part of IT, and we could select that. And now he's part of that IT group as well. Again, with roles and assignments, we can come down here to roles and assignments. And of course, we could go ahead and add roles and assignments. We could do authentication methods where we would say, right, we want to authenticate using MFA. We could revoke that MFA token. We could reset a password, or we could say we're going to phone you. We can use an alternate phone number. We could use an email address to authenticate someone with. We might say, okay, we're going to use that. And then we could go ahead and say, right, we're going to authenticate Billy Bob. So to authenticate with that email address. Obviously, you put his own email address. I'm just going to use this as an example, and we would click save, and would save that. And you're going to say, if you want him to use MFA, we could go ahead and do that. But again, MFA won't work because you need to have a P2 license to do that. Of course, if we come back into our groups, again, we've got devices here where the same thing is. We can go ahead and search for devices. If devices were joined to our thing, like Kevin was talking about MDM, You can go ahead there and cover MDM as well on that. You've also got administrative units as too, where you can go and assign an administrative unit if you wanted to assign something to somebody. Again, AD is so huge and there's so many things to cover. But as you guys are getting into the help desk, or as you're getting familiar with Active Directory, knowing how to create a user, how to delete a user, how to create a group, how to add a user to that group, how to recover a user, and how to do bulk imports is quite important, because it gives you a good, solid foundation to work with. Also, like I say, with us having issues with our CSV file, is probably also turned out to be a good exercise, because it can prep you so that you don't go down that same road. You say, oh, okay, well, we've had an issue with a user. We don't want to go.
I was gonna say, Ryan, that it turns into, you have to, when you do these labs, like for people that are brand new, you want to figure out how you turn it into an interview question, because that could very well be an interview question. How do you do a bulk on Active Directory or stuff like that?
And if they say to you, and I mean, I know another guy that talking about that, I know another guy that another IT manager, that when he interviewed users, he said to them, okay, well, I've created a bulk import. The username is correct. The password is correct. His email address is correct. He's in the right department, but I'm still getting an error when I try to import that user. What's wrong with the CSV file? And you might say, well, it's not a CSV file. And he says, but it is a CSV file. So you can say, well, because there's a space. There's a space somewhere in your username, or your password complexity doesn't meet the requirements, or there's a username, a space in the username that's got the ryan@rocketlabs.com. And the only way you'll know that is if you've played with creating users and you've worked with, like you say, Azure Active Directory, because at the end of the day, also remember, Azure certifications, Microsoft have made them valid for 2 years, because every 2 years you need to recertify. And the reason you need to recertify is because they change stuff. And if you look in Azure and you always see previews of stuff going on, you know Azure's about to change in terms of adding a new feature, or they're combining new features. And they get all this feedback from various IT companies, because this feedback is so crucial to them to provide you with really good labs, so that you can walk away and say, okay, how do I do this? How do I create these users? So, and then at the end of the day, Azure's changing all the time. And again, if you go to Azure Services and you click all, you can see how many things are in preview. You can see there's a lot of stuff in preview. And that means they're about to add it into Azure, or they're about to combine something. So they're forever modifying and adding stuff. So there's hundreds of services that they use, and a lot of stuff that's coming into play. So it's really cool. Even with virtual machines, there's a new service called Azure Arc, where you can onboard your servers from a hybrid environment straight into Azure and manage them. It's really cool. It's something we'll cover later down the road with Kevin. So again, doing those users is really important. Of course, coming back up to here, having a look at what your notifications are. Again, reading the notification area issues. A lot of people see, oh, I've got an error, close it. And they do the same thing and they get the error again. Open up the thing and try and see why it failed, and having a look. I mean, I know some of the stuff is not too descriptive, so you've got to drag it right open. So if you move this over to the thing and you carry on doing this, you can see here, if we'd opened this file, it would have told us here, ensure your domain portion of the username is verified in your Azure AD domain. So remember, we had that domain issue where we had to change our domain because it wasn't the primary domain. So reading the error issues, reading errors is really important to becoming a good engineer, not just doing the same thing over. Okay, well, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. And you kind of say, well, this is going to take a long time. It should work. Why is it not working? So these are things that you need to be aware of. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go back into Bash and I'm going to fire up Bash again. Just drag it up so I get some real estate. If it'll allow me. Okay, it's not allowing me to drag up for some reason. It's being otherwise.
Probably the tab that you're in right now.
Yeah.
You got to refresh the tab or something.
Yeah. There we go.
There we go.
Now it drags it all the way to the top. Just go Azure. That's just awesome. I'm gonna paste this in. So as you can see, we've got AD user create display name, Lewis Lane. We've given it a password, principal name, and we press enter. And this has gone away and created that user. Now remember earlier on in the lab, I said we had an issue creating that user. And I've done this quickly because we will come back to this. So I'll just scroll up and show you where the problem was. Remember when I said display name, I had too many spaces here. This is just one space. Again, the passwords in quotations, I've changed the password and I've had a character. Remember the other one just said password 2. Azure requires password complexity. So hence putting that @ sign in there gives me that complexity. Are you with me? So the username Lewis Lane at Rocket Labs was correct. But the reason that account failed was because we didn't have this and we had some spaces here. Now we've created this account in Bash. So let's go and see if it's created it in Azure. So let's go to the Azure user and just give it a second. There's Lewis Lane created. That was a lot quicker than going through the graphical user interface. That was a lot quicker than going through the graphical user interface. And there's Lewis Lane. And you've created her in a few seconds. Again, you can reset her password doing that. So learning a bit about the Bash commands and a little bit about the PowerShell commands are really important at the end of the day when you are wanting to create users. Let's have a look at our, let's just minimize this. Let's go back into groups. And we don't have a group called sales. So, hey, let's go and create a sales group using PowerShell. So again, I've got this command here. I'll just copy it and I'll just switch over into PowerShell, confirm that we're in PowerShell. And how you can tell you in PowerShell, guys, for those that are new, PowerShell has the familiar blue background where Bash has the black background. So you can kind of tell which background you're in. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste that user in, that group name, and that's gone ahead and created that sales group. So now we've created a sales group by using the new AD group display name. Let's call that group sales. And obviously we have to give it a nickname. It's part of the requirements. And if I did a refresh, there's my sales group created. So we've created a user in Bash and we've created a group using PowerShell. So you can see the command line interface is really important when it comes to creating resources. It's something to get familiar with. Again, this privileged access resource group, it's in preview. And as you can see, it's spinning there and it's going to do things. So this is really good. Again, have a look at the top here. Your organization needs a E5 or an Azure AD P2. And so if we click on this and we say, okay, Azure AD P2, this tells you what privilege management is going to do and what it's required and what the capabilities are. And here we go. We click on this and we can say, do we want to do a free trial or do we want to do a P2 free trial? And you can go ahead and get a free trial and start playing with your P2 licenses. If you wanted to upgrade to a free trial, you could just click free trial, and this will go ahead and create that free trial for you. Then you can start using single sign-on, password reset, MFA, and all the cool things. Intune, which is nice for deploying applications, Active Directory rights management. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. So by clicking on this little icon here, or this purple header, sorry.
Someone asked a question. Actually, someone said, I see mail enable on the group is false. What does that mean?
Mail enabled on which group? On his group or my group or?
Yeah, when you're running the command, he's like, I see mail enable on group is false. What does that mean?
Yeah, because I don't want, I don't have an Exchange server.
Got it.
Yeah, if you had, I don't have 365 running. Are you with me? If I had 365 running, obviously it wouldn't come back with a false. But because I don't have 365, that person's not going to be able to do anything. Again, Kevin has some good information on where you can go and create a 365 account for free and get a license for a year free and have Exchange admin.
I'm gonna make a video on that. I haven't made it yet.
And you could integrate that with your Azure, then you'd be sweet, because then you'd be able to publish applications and you'll be able to do a whole lot of cool things. Again, coming back down to Active Directory as well, while we're in our main Active Directory over here, you can come down and of course you can do password resets straight from here. And you can see we've got self-password resets, but we need to get a premium trial to do this. And this allows users to reset their own passwords so they're not phoning the help desk every time. And you can see that it says get a free premium trial. Just go there and get that. We've got company branding. Again, if you wanted to brand stuff, this is really cool. It just tells you go and get, sign up and, excuse me, and you're away to go. Again, of course, you've got your different user settings here. You can go ahead and choose who has access to the Azure portal and who doesn't. And of course, we can do auditing. We can go into security. And of course, you've got compliance. You've got AD Connect if you wanted to connect up your domain controller to your Active Directory domain controller. You can go down and download this and install this, and you'll be good to go. You've got your external identities as well, which allows you to build on B2B and add more collaboration features. And you can customize the user experience. You can calibrate. So you can have guys from, like Gmail, Facebook, Microsoft. You can kind of do a whole lot of bits and pieces. You can protect your apps and brands by using governance.
Someone said E5 license is very expensive. Someone was just saying in the comment.
Yeah, well, a P2 license is cheap. I think it's $9 per user. So these are things that you can talk about. But again, it's just getting you familiar working with some of the base fundamentals of Active Directory. And as a person working with Azure, most companies would expect you to at least know how to create a user, delete a user, recover a user, create a group, and add a user to a group in Active Directory so that you can become familiar with your users at the end of the day. So again, if you're coming to delete users, and let's say I delete users from here, then they are gone for good. You can't, if you want to recover them, then you're going to have to look at a backup to recover that. So if I select this user and I say delete, you're going to get a warning, permanently deleted users. That's it, it's gone. You can't bring it back. It's gone. So if I go, oh, heck, too sad, too bad. You now go and find a backup of your resources and recover from a backup. So again, coming down and getting stuff from here deleting stuff from here is really something you need to be aware of. If you delete users from here, they are gone. Again, if you wanted to find your deleted users, you could do the same thing. You could come down here, and of course, if you click on the bulk restore, if you notice here, this is just allows you to restore users. You can't do anything else. So you can select your users from a CSV and restore them as well. But again, like I say, it's just being a bit familiar with Active Directory. Look at what you're doing. Don't just delete stuff because the stuff's been deleted. And again, if users are sitting here, users are permanently deleted after 30 days. So after 30 days, these users will get removed. You can obviously add filters and you could add policies, and you can say, well, I want to create a policy so that I know when I want to delete the user. Obviously, when people leave the company, you disable their accounts. You don't delete the users because you may need to get information back from that. So these preview panes, normally, like I say, I know from experience with Microsoft, when it says preview, they're about to add some features or go live with stuff. And when they do go live, 90% of the time, they have made some cool changes. So what we may see here may change slightly, but it's definitely a good change for us. And Microsoft have listened to us, especially as help desk people, as admins, sysadmins, and IT engineers. Recovering user accounts and stuff has in the past been a pain. So they've made it nice and friendly, user-friendly for us. Again, you could create your own domain by coming in here and adding a custom domain, typing in your domain name. It'll go away, think about it. And then, of course, you would log into your hosting provider. You would add those records there, and you would create your, import your custom domain into Azure. Again, we can cover that in another session. There's so much to do in Active Directory. And again, being on the help desk, you probably find that you won't have a lot of access to stuff. This is something new as well, Azure Virtual Assistant, which is really cool. So you could go ahead now, and it's got like a little virtual assistant there. So you could just type in, password, press enter, and it'll go away, and it's gonna tell us, what do you want to know about a password? So you can, there we go. Please clarify. So this is really cool. That's
pretty cool.
So it's a new feature there. It wasn't there before. So it's really cool. And you say, administrator cannot reset a user's password. Okay, let's, or here, enable users to unlock their passwords with Azure Active Directory. So there's a little tutorial there, or you could click on that. It's going to go away, and it's going to come back, and it says, well, please wait. And okay, so we say, do you want to use the current user or another user? We say another user, and you could enter the user's ID. So we could say Beth, and hit enter, and this will go away and have a look. And that's because we deleted Beth completely. So it's a good little thing. So like I say, Microsoft are forever adding stuff. You know, they're listening to us. If you need to create a support request around Active Directory, again, go to your AD, go right down to the bottom and say new support request. This will now allow you to create a support request directly to the Microsoft Azure, Active Directory Azure team. And obviously you can go ahead and you can say it's a technical issue. You have your domain name. You can say, right, it's Active Directory. I'm having an issue with, I don't know, B2B stuff. You can select, you know, I'm having a problem with troubleshooting custom policy. And like Microsoft, you go through a whole lot of yes, 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 yes type of thing. And then you could go ahead and submit that, and they would either come back with a solution for you, or you get an email. So it's really cool. Microsoft have come to the party, and I can see why Azure's growing at such a phenomenal rate, because it's user-friendly. Again, moving back into Azure audit logs, we can actually see our audit logs. We can export that data if I wanted to export it for diagnostics. And I could then troubleshoot my Active Directory a little bit more. But again, like I said, today's lab has been about showing you how to create a user in the portal, how to create a user using a Cloud Shell, which is this little icon at the top here. We created a group using Cloud Shell. We created groups using the portal. We added users to those groups. We did a bulk import. We troubleshooted a CSV file to get it working correctly. So again, it's more about giving you the real world hands-on labs. I don't want to create a lab for you guys and let it run perfect because A, every single one of you are clever. B, I need to get you to think, okay, this is not working. How do we get it to work? What was the issue? Because if someone fixes it for you, you don't know what the issue is, and then you learned nothing. Secondly, if you know what the issue is and you understand what it is, you can fix it and you can walk away and say, I now know how to do this. And I guarantee you that little exercise you did with the CSV file, you will have a lot of people struggling with it. And you can say, well, this is what you need to do. I know guys that have put that in their interview questions because it catches you for a 360 when someone says to you, the username is correct, the password's correct, the email address is correct, they're not part of any groups, they're not part of any security features, so that takes complexity issues out, but yet I still can't import those users. So I say, well, my spacing's correct, but I still can't import them. And say, well, you need to then physically go and look at the CSV file and edit your CSV file so that it actually shows the email address underlined, and it needs to be that, otherwise it's not going to work. So these are things that you can walk away with and say, okay, I've learned how to troubleshoot this. I know what caused the issue, and I now know how to fix it. Because if you can understand why it got broke, you can understand how to fix it. Again, there's also another IT analogy. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. So again, at the end of the day, playing, getting your hands dirty will help you tremendously in your career. And like I said, I try to make the labs live so that if I do have an issue, we can troubleshoot them together and we can walk away and say, I've learned something, or hey, wow, that was a tricky one. Or some of you may have already known the answer on how to fix that. But again, it's more about giving you that base understanding, that base knowledge, so that at the end of the day, you can say, no, I know how to create users using the Cloud Shell or the portal. And you'll be surprised how many people I've interviewed for roles in IT that don't know how to create a user using PowerShell or Bash in Azure. They can do it in the portal. And you'll be surprised as well how many people don't know about importing the bulk users or even reading errors correctly so that you can try to understand what is it that it's not working. Oh, okay, the domain name is wrong. Why is the domain name wrong? Because people say, well, I've gone into my custom domains and there's all my domains. And you say, yeah, but your primary domain is Rocket Labs. We're working on the primary domain. If this was the primary domain, then my Azure Guru would work. You can't have 4 primary domains. You can only have one, but you can have multiple domains in there. However, you can assign users a different name, because when we created our user, and for example, if I went down here and we created another user, we'll just say Ryan, then I could select which domain Ryan wants to be part of. And I could say, right, he's going to be part of Rocket Labs or this account or that account. So you can choose what he wants to be, which domain he wants to be part of. But when you're doing your CSV file, just pay attention to the domain names and stuff. People might even show you screenshots. Or, hey, I can't, what's this for? So, well, that's to invite someone outside into your organization. So, well, I've sent them an email that they still can't log on. You say, well, did they accept the invitation? Yes, they have. So, well, they get 2 invitations. They don't just get 1, they get 2. And scrolling back here, as you can see, if I go back into my inbox, they get 2 invitations, one that invites them, and then one that verifies who you are. So it's an authentication. It's saying, okay, you said you are Ryan. Now prove to me that you're Ryan. And the only way you can prove to me is by typing in that unique code. So people say, well, I only got one email, because people are in too much of a hurry and they don't look at the other email. And you see, this email is related to account protection. So it's an authentication email, because if someone says to you, well, that's not an authentication email, you can say, yes, it is. Look here, it tells you that it's protecting your environment. So the first one is the actual invite, saying, hey, you've been invited to join, welcome to our domain. You can have access to Word, Excel, or Gmail, or whatever the case may be. You accept the invitation, and you say, well, now what? I'm not getting anything, because people accept the invitation and they go ahead and they close their Gmail account. Then they try and log on and they can't, and then they'll phone the help desk. I can't log on. The help desk will say, well, everything's right on our side. So the simple thing is, say the person, you would have received 2 emails. One to invite you to the domain, and the other one that authenticates you into the domain. And once you've been authenticated, you log into the domain. If I had an Office 365 license and I gave Kevin access to Word or Excel, he could go to his apps here, and he would see all of his apps over here that he would have access to, and then he could work on those apps. So again, you can see the organization. It's my training, and if he clicks on there, it takes him straight back here. So your environment is well protected at the end of the day when you're working with someone. So again, it's just about, how do I invite an external user? How do I get them access to my Active Directory? How do I authenticate them? How do I create users and groups? And like I say, there's a whole lot we can do. We've just scratched the surface, guys. There is so many cool things you can do. You get people who just specialize in Active Directory only. But again, being IT guys, I want you to have a solid foundation so you can walk away and you can say, right, I know what's going on with AD. Again, by going right up to your Active Directory, going to the top here, you can see you've got 11 users, 4 groups. Again, if I click on those groups, it takes me straight to those groups. Again, I could delete groups from here. You can do auditing, new request. Again, I could set expiration dates on things. Obviously, this requires licensing stuff. So you can go through and even set up a naming policy where you can say, right, I want stuff to be named in a certain way. Then you can do that as well. And of course, you might have your own things, and then you could upload those to a CSV file as well. Remember, Active Directory always uses a .csv file, and this will go right back from Active Directory 2000 and onwards. Again, just exploring, getting familiar with Active Directory will help you to understand. And again, this is different from the Active Directory that you guys use on your domain controller. When you start setting up passwords and policies and security, you then now move into Security Center, and you start creating policies and governance as well around there. So again, as you can see, it's very, very big, Active Directory. There's a lot of cool things that Microsoft are doing around it. And it's definitely something to learn. Not saying that you need to learn every single tab or every little single line here, but just having a broad overview of what I've given you will help you tremendously when you go for an interview. Again, try and create this yourself and practice and play. Like I say, at the end of the day, it's all about learning. Again, you are not being charged a single cent for Active Directory. Obviously, you are limited to creating those 50,000 or accounts, and then obviously it won't allow you to do any more. But I don't see you creating a 50,000 accounts in your lab, unless you want to create a CSV file with 50,000 users to see if it's going to work. But like I say, at the end of the day, it's about having fun, practicing and just getting to grips with Active Directory in Azure. So I hope you guys have learned some stuff. I mean, your feedback and questions have just been absolutely amazing. Again, I know every single one of you are smart people. Like I say, practice and play. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this. And I hope you've learned something. And that about wraps this lab up for today.
Awesome, Ryan. That was fun, man. Created an account. We did bulk import. We did a bunch of different things today. I hope everyone learned something today. Thank you for taking the time to join our live session. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan, for creating this tutorial for everyone that's brand new to IT. I greatly appreciate that too. And with that being said, I'll let you guys go. I don't know if Ryan wants to say any final words.
Yeah, again, as usual, thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to watch. I know you've got better things to do during your day. Again, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you again for subscribing to my channel. Thank you again for being part of my LinkedIn. Thank you again for, like I say, just taking the time. Again, I appreciate it and I value you guys. And I know you all have such great potential. You'll end up being good engineers, one step at a time. That's all it takes. And again, thank you so much, guys. You have a great weekend. Be safe. Have fun. You guys are awesome.
Take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Bye. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's done.